So this is pretty crazy. Kit Harrington, the star of Game of Thrones, now said that he wants to be in the new Harry Potter series. For me, Jon Snow was my favorite character in the Game of Thrones show, so this is pretty exciting for me. If you don't know, Kit Harrington has already joined the Wizarding World as he was part of the full cast audiobooks that are now being released. And I'm actually going to make a separate video on that because I really do want to give my thoughts on it so far. But the Chamber of Secrets audiobook just dropped, and Kit plays Gilderoy Lockhart, and I must say, he plays him brilliantly, and I'm sure that any role that he would get in the series, he would nail too. He is a fantastic actor. So this announcement was released by Variety, who did a whole Q&A with Kit about all things Harry Potter. So in this video, I just wanted to go over it because there are a lot of things to highlight and a lot of fun things that Kit said. So he admitted that he's a self-proclaimed Harry Potter nerd, and he fell in love with the books as a kid and reread them many times over the years. And one thing that this article does go over is that there is another Game of Thrones star that is also in the full cast audiobooks, and that is Robert Baratheon. God, I hope I pronounced that right. But he's voicing Hagrid, and if you listen to the first audiobook, obviously Hagrid has a major role in that, so we saw quite a bit of him, and he nailed it too. But again, I'll talk more about that in a separate video about these audiobooks. But just thought I'd mention it. It's cool that 2 different Game of Thrones alumni are now in the Wizarding World. But anyway, let's just go through the Q&A. So the first question was, what's your relationship like with Harry Potter, and have you read the books or watched the movies? And shout out to Kit, dude. He said, I'm a big book nerd, but he never really got into the movies so much. He said that he did watch them, but what he loved was the books. And being probably the biggest book fan in the entire world, like listen dude, I love the movies, but the books are always going to be better. That's just my opinion, and clearly it's Kit's opinion too. But he also said that when he read them, he was 11, the same as Harry, who was also 11. And then shout out to him again, dude. He said that he loved the audiobooks with Stephen Fry, who in my opinion is the better audiobook reader over Jim Dale. But again, that's just my opinion. I know a lot of people love Jim Dale, but personally, I've always loved Stephen Fry. But the fact that he loved the audiobooks so much and is now literally part of a new Harry Potter audiobook is probably really surreal for him. Then dude, shout out to him again. When asked what his favorite book is, he said The Half-Blood Prince, which is my favorite book too. Now here's a guy who knows ball. I love that meme. I don't know if a lot of people understand it, especially overseas, with Chris Collinsworth, who's a football announcer. He's just known for saying over and over again, now here's a guy who blah blah blah. So if you didn't know the backstory of that meme, there you go. Then this next question is something that went viral on Twitter. I even retweeted it and said, yeah, that's pretty valid. But he goes over a plot hole in the Goblet of Fire, and he says, I have some questions about the plot holes during the tournament. It's not a great tournament to watch, is it? Other than the dragon one, they don't get to see underwater, and they can't see in the maze, so I don't see what's in it for the rest of the school. Which is so true, dude. Like, I feel like a lot of Harry Potter fans have talked about that, and I even made a shorts clip where I dress up as Dumbledore, talk as Harry and Ron, and basically go over the tournament and all the problems with it. If you want to check that out, it's on the shorts tab of my channel. I thought it was pretty funny, and I'm probably gonna do more skits like that because people seem to like them. I actually have a few written, I just haven't gotten down to actually doing them. It's been tough moving and then having a 7-month-old baby. Life's been crazy. But anyway, Kit is then asked, did you ever audition for a role in any of the movies? And he said no, he was a bit too old. He said, I think Daniel Radcliffe is a few years younger than him. But he said, I would have done them had those auditions come up. Then he was asked, how did you get involved with the audiobook? And he said, it's very simple. They asked whether I wanted to play Lockhart. It was a really simple yes, because I love the character. As far as cameos in the series go, you don't get much more entertaining and fun to do as an actor than Gilderoy Lockhart. It was a no-brainer. So clearly, dude, he's all in on just the Wizarding World and Harry Potter in general. And then he expanded on that, saying, there was a part of me that was wondering, why have they come to me for Lockhart? Which is pretty humble of him. Like, dude, you're freaking Kit Harrington. But then he said he recorded everything in a few days for book 2. And obviously he's going to come back for book 5 when he's in St. Mungo's hospital, which I am pretty excited for. And he then described the character of Lockhart, saying he's a lovely little entertaining, tragic, comical character who popped in. And then when asked, how did you find Lockhart's Lockhart's voice, he said there was very little research needed because I know the book so well and because I essentially come from the same world as Lockhart. I look at it this way, there's a little part of Lockhart in all of us, and there's more than a little bit of Lockhart in me, so I didn't need to stretch too far. I knew that if you're coming in and doing audio, you're gonna go quite big for a character like that. I didn't want to play him too suave. He is that much removed from reality that he can be as big as you like. Those are some interesting comments, saying that he is basically Lockhart and came from the same place. Now I'm interested how he grew up. And he also basically said that he's super cocky to the point where it's kind of alarming, but I guess if I was Kit Harrington, I would be the same way, so shout out to him. And then as I mentioned earlier, he does return for the Order of the Phoenix, and they actually asked him about that. And this was a really interesting question, as they said, did you change how you voiced him at all for this section? And that's a great question, because at this point, he lost his mind, he lost his memory, he doesn't fully know who he is. So would he play it like a different character? Well, the answer is no. Kit said no, I think he's the same. Then they asked him, are you planning to introduce your kids to Harry Potter when they're old enough to read? And he said, absolutely, I can't wait to read the books to my kids. And dude, I can so relate to that. Once my 7th-month-old Wesley gets old enough, dude, I cannot wait to read him Harry Potter. That's one of the things I'm looking forward to most. Hopefully he likes it. I think he will. It's hard not to. Then another interesting question. Dude, shout out to the interviewer. They did a great job. But they said if there were a new Game of Thrones audiobook, who would you want to voice Jon Snow? And he said, I don't want to go anywhere near it. I spent 10 years doing that. Thanks, I'm alright. And I'm semi-curious if he feels that way because of how the show flopped at the end. That was a generational downfall of a show that honestly has to be studied. It was regarded as one of the best shows of all time, and then the last season came out and everybody was like, yeah, I don't even think it makes top 10, which is rough, and that might be why Kit is like, I don't want to go anywhere near it. At the same time though, it could also just be because he was in that world for so long, and he doesn't want to have to come back and do it again. Also, dude, it's crazy that Game of Thrones ended in 2019, and because we're about to enter 2026, that was almost 7 years ago. Dude, that's wild. It feels like yesterday that it ended. And finally, they asked him, who would you want to play in HBO's live-action Harry Potter series? And he said, I'd take any of them. I'll be a background extra. I don't care. I would love to be in that. So listen, HBO, or I guess now Netflix, because Netflix now owns Warner Brothers, so it's up in the air if HBO is still going to be at the helm for this show. But anyway, Netflix, HBO, showrunners, whoever you are, get this man in the show. Get Kit Harrington into this world even more past the audiobooks and cast them in a really great role. I think we all want to see it. I would be absolutely delighted to see Kit in this series. And there's so many people he could play, from Lupin, Sirius. Honestly, if he played Sirius, that would be pretty spot on with the hair that he had as Jon Snow. And clearly, dude, he wants to do it. He said that he would even be a background extra, which obviously would never happen with talent like his. But please, showrunners, I'm speaking directly to you, make this happen. This was a fun article to go over, I must say. One of the most fun articles that I've done in a video. Again, shout out to the interviewer. They did a great job asking all of the right questions and really getting Kit to open up about his experience with Harry Potter, the Wizarding World, but also still focusing on what the interview was about, which was him being in the audiobook. So yeah, shout out to Variety, dude. This was a great article and that was a great Q&A. But yeah, I just wanted to cover this because I've been covering everything to do with the Harry Potter TV show so far. And if you want to catch up on all of the news for that show, I have a whole playlist right here with all of the videos, and there are a fair few of them. And then the channel also has other cool Harry Potter content, like this one where I go over every character that killed someone in the series. That was a fun one to do. But that's all I have for you guys today though. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.